My dear friends, what a pleasure, honor and privilege it is to be here today in the company of such refined fellows as yourselves. Me, myself, Polentata de Castagnacci, Italian condottiero, winner of the Siege of Easter Island, inventor of the inflatable musket, maker of rare wine, and above all of these things, leader of the company of the Magenta Banner. Being part of this wonderful club to me is really a great honor, especially now that I'm traveling the world in exile from my original country, the beautiful Grand Ducate of Tuscany, because of a minor diplomatic incident that I've had with the daughter of the Grand Duke. A really minor episode, but completely overblown in the gossip by my enemies. But thank you in particular to you, Phillibus, for asking me to tell you one of my favorite stories. Not necessarily my most incredible stories. I have stories that can prove my prowess and my personal qualities even better. But since you're curious about that not even exceptional adventure that I had the fortune or misfortune, in any case the opportunity to be the protagonist of, then I will tell you about that one. So what you want to know is how was it that I spent 9 months in the belly of the world-eating giraffe Boom 10J, and how did I manage to avenge the Earth and to resolve a problem that they had with the Portugese Man-o-War that had absconded with my wife. Well, again, it was really a piece of cake. Nevertheless, before I start with the story, let me get a sip of one of my favorite wines. It is a wine that actually I make. It is called the wine of the 1283 pleasures, because it delivers such an intense and nuanced bouquet that it causes 1,283 different degrees of pleasure to burst in your mouth. I'd like to offer you some of this wine, but it is so intense, and the pleasure that it creates is so incredible that any palate less stronger than mine would not be able to hold it. It would kill pretty much any human being less resistant than I am. That's the word that I was looking for. You see, just the anticipation of drinking this wine, the joy that I'm going to experience after I sip this wine was such that it impaired my lexical knowledge of the beautiful English language. It is such an incredible wine that I can make only 1 bottle a year on a special Indian hill that I saw during one of my campaigns. I realized that that had the perfect earth for my wine, and I had it transplanted in Italy, in the countryside around Naples, because that was the perfect side to capture the perfect light that combined with the chemistry of that earth, and watered with the tears of the Princess of Persia. That was a perfect combination that would create the most perfect wine. Yes, the Princess of Persia has been sending me jars of her tears ever since she read a poem, a love poem that I wrote for her a long time ago. She could not stop crying, and it just so happens that her tears were indeed the perfect ingredient. Some people have malignantly said that the entire love poem and breaking the heart of the princess was a trick to start with to obtain her tears, but I just reject such stories. Nevertheless, I cannot help but thanking her for helping me making such a unique and refined drink. Every sip of this that you survive is a great sip. Also, if you look at it from the right angle and the light is hitting it at exactly 45 degrees, an average glass of this one will show a 3-dimensional replica of the Sistine Chapel. It is very impressive. Oh, look at, oh, beautiful. The detail. But Back to the story. I'm sure that you have heard of the world-eating giraffe Munchausen-like, even though probably you thought that that was a legend, that happened a long time ago, but no, the giraffe was real. It was this huge, immense giraffe that was roaming the universe and devouring planet after planet. In some cases, a planet was not appealing to the giraffe. After some chewing, the giraffe would spit it and turn it into a planetoid, so basically degrading the quality of the planet. That is the destiny of Pluto, that glorious planet that now, because of the evil intervention of Munchausen-like, people classify as a planetoid. Such a sad story. So this giraffe I saw was on her way to eat the Earth, a very annoying thing because I'm kind of fond of this planet. Not necessarily the best one that I've seen in my life. I've had a very good time on a lot of other ones, but this one I'm just attached to. Also, my vineyard is here, and how could I have this without this planet? So I thought that it was my duty to intervene. Unfortunately, at that time, I was busy testing my new armor, and to do that, in order to see, to make sure that my armor that I had devised was completely impervious to any sort of external attack, and in particular against heat attacks, because I was planning to kill the green dragon of the Himalaya. Then at that time, I was wearing the armor and I was sitting in the core of the sun, where I felt just a little feeling of warmth, so I was happy because that meant that the armor was effective and the green dragon of the Himalaya would not have been able to fry me as he was planning to do. Unfortunately, just because I was so busy testing my armor, Munchausen-like managed to reach the Earth before I realized what was happening, and I saw what was happening just a second in which the giraffe ate the Earth in one single mouthful. Very impressive feature. Now, I thought it was my duty then to try to rescue the Earth. Unfortunately, the muscles down the throat of the giraffe are organized in such a way that anything that goes down is bound to go in a one direction trip. It will never be able to come up. And on the other hand, the digestive system of the giraffe is too narrow to allow a planet to go through it, only digest the remains of a planet, so even trying to go through there would have been useless to try to pull out the Earth from that part. Why did I not dig a hole in the side of the giraffe to take the Earth out? Well, if you're asking such a question, it really means that you have been living in a cave for a long time. How is it possible that you had not heard that the world-eating giraffe Munchausen-like was immortal, impervious to anything, indestructible, and her skin was absolutely impossible to break? Once there was an attack that was attempted by a colleague of mine, the leader of the company of the Pink Banner. He attacked with an army of 100,000 dwarfs mounting war pandas, and an attack combined with an attack of 20,000 Amazons on small ponies, and that supported by 100,000 werewolves with 2 heads each, and that's a lot of heads. They're trying to think of a strategy, and yet nothing. They just bounced off, and there was no effect whatsoever on the giraffe. So I did not even waste it. I did not even waste time trying to break the skin of the giraffe. I had to go through the mouth. I waited for a moment in which the giraffe was yawning because the giraffe wanted to take a nap after such a good meal, after eating the Earth, and I managed to sneak in to the throat. So I knew that would be a one-way trip. I would not be able to go out from that direction, but that was the challenge. So, I was there with the Earth and with all of you because you were there. That was the Earth. Everybody was involved. I know you don't remember this, but what can I say? Nepenthe is a great healer. Oblivion seemed to have helped a lot of people getting over the trauma of losing the Earth, of having themselves and the planet devoured by the gigantic giraffe, which is why you do not remember. So what could I do? What could I do? There was no way for that time being to save the earth, but certainly I could avenge it, and that was my first idea at the time. How could I avenge it against a giraffe that was immortal and also impervious to any possible attack? Well, I had to find a way to make the giraffe suffer, and the way to do so was to condemn the giraffe to an eternity of starvation. I thought that the best idea to do so was to create a gastric bypass for the giraffe. So I started sewing the esophagus of the giraffe and just shrinking it, and then I started sewing another area, another line of very tight ropes and chains and other things and barbed wire around the stomach, and then pulling and pulling and pulling with the help of 1,225 horses that I had borrowed from a colleague of mine, the leader of the Pink and Yellow Company. The company of the pink and yellow banner. This is long name, sometimes I get confused. So with all these horses pulling in one direction, we were able to shrink the stomach of the giraffe. I know it's not a traditional bypass, but it worked. The idea was to prevent the giraffe from ever eating again. If the giraffe tried to eat, the giraffe would suffer and would feel like vomiting, but it couldn't, because nothing can go out. You see, everything comes together. And so that the giraffe would be condemned to live forever, immortality would backfire, and the giraffe would be forced to wander the spaces of the universe, looking at all those fat, yummy planets and not being able to eat them. That was a great triumph. I really felt satisfied. Again, I have done better, trust me, but this, for the time being, in a time between bigger adventures, was not a small satisfaction. Now, of course, you're not inside the belly of a giraffe, even though I've heard that there is a small group, a small cult in Central America that does believe that the universe is within the belly of a gigantic giraffe that is in turn surrounded by a gigantic burrito, but I think that's just a local belief. In reality, we're not inside the giraffe anymore, but I don't know if it's a good idea for me to break it to you, but we're not on the old Earth either. As I said, that was doomed. There was just no way of taking it out. The Earth would have been sooner or later digested and destroyed in the process. So what else could I do? I felt it was my responsibility as the only one that wasn't freaked out entirely to do something about it, and well, I think that you guessed it, I built a new one. I just built a new Earth, trying to make it as similar as possible as it was before. I coordinated my work together with the leaders of other condottieri. See, we condottieri go out to chop off people, cut off people's head, torture people that have beliefs different from ours, bring destruction, pillage, but we're not bad people. We really are all about improving society and making a difference. In fact, when the situation is critical, we're able to step to the occasion and to build the Earth. So coordinated by me and with the help of my pretty elevated logistical skills, we were able to rebuild the Earth. The way we did it was we disassembled the old Earth, like many little bricks, as many parts of it as we could, because part of it already started being digested, in particular the tallest mountains and some of the very tall buildings, the tallest buildings. We had lost half of the Torre Eiffel by that time, so that was lost. But as much as we could of the original Earth, we assembled in little breaks. We disassembled in little breaks, and then going out of the I know that was terrible, all the intestines of the giraffe, we were able to take the little bricks out one after the other. The pieces that we had lost already because digested by the giraffe, then we had to replace with pieces of cosmic matter that I then pressed very tightly together thanks to my superhuman strength, and that managed to create the replacement. The Torre Eiffel was a little taller back then. I just did what I could, but it works. It's still kind of there. Not many people have noticed many differences there. So we had all these bricks of the earth, and we put them back together because, luckily enough, I had the wisdom of making a map, writing a little number on each piece of the earth so that we could then put them all together like a big puzzle. Some things still came out a little messed up, like kangaroos used to look like Hollywood actors before. Now they look a little funny because their feet are so long. And snails wearing all that wet and slimy and disgusting before. So we messed up a little bit, but all minor details. We didn't mess up any major things. One thing that actually we managed to improve was with the some marine animals that had been bothering me for a while. Now, you have to know that my beautiful wife, that I love more than my company of the magenta banner, my beautiful wife is Brazilian, and she grew up on the river Amazon in a community on a small island in the middle of the river Amazon, where people used to fish piranhas and to fish all sorts of animals, and they had a very close, almost friendly relation with the nature, in particular with the marine animals. Because of her background, I think it is no surprise that one day, as she was with me in the military camp outside of Easter Island during the long siege of Easter Island, that time when we were out at sea, the camp was on the sea on a series of floating boats, well, inflatable boats. They weren't exactly boats. Well, to be honest, they were sort of like beach toys shaped like gigantic platypuses. But that was kind of just, I was trying to trick the opponent. The opponent would think, oh, what were they thinking? What were they thinking? The opponent, yes, because I was trying to take control of Easter Island. Because at that point it was ruled by an usurper, and I had been hired, me and my company, by the second Prince of Monrovia to take control of Easter Island that belonged to his lineage but had fallen under the hands of the third Grand Duke of Himalaya. Now, that's the problem. Yeah, the same one that actually had then later unleashed the Green Dragon of Himalaya against me to retaliate against the fact that I was able to conquer Easter Island and take it away from his hands. Taking Easter Island was very hard because it was surrounded by a notorious a ring of man-eating mollusks, just ferocious mollusks. Anybody who would go in there would be killed instantly by those little naggers. The way I did it was basically to synthesize a potent aphrodisiac from some tropical flowers that I had collected in a previous adventure of mine, and I basically spread this dust, this powder, aphrodisiac powder, on several birds that then I unleashed on the island. The powder was then unleashed on the population. They started breathing it in, and they went into a sexual frenzy that caused them to reproduce at an insane rate. In a matter of just 40-50 years, the population of Easter Island had reached 2.5 million thanks to this incredible reproductive frenzy that they fell into. At that point, they couldn't all fit, and they didn't fit in the island anymore because the island is kind of small. So they started falling in the water, and the mollusks started eating them. And actually, there were so many of them that the mollusks, for the first time in their life, were completely full. They couldn't eat anymore. They were looking like gigantic balloons. And that is when me and my company managed to enter the island and take control of it. As I said, it was a long siege during which, alas, my concentration on the strategy of war was such that I had not noticed that my wife had become more and more distracted, more and more distant. My fault, maybe one of the very few faults that I have ever had in my otherwise pretty heroic and immaculate life. In any case, I realized maybe I have overlooked family life a little too much, and too later did I discover that she had absconded with the Portuguese Man-o-War that she had met during a swim outside of the sea, outside of Easter Island. Now, all this precedes the adventure in the belly of the gigantic giraffe, but as we were reconstructing the Earth outside, as you can imagine, the Portuguese Man-o-War was there too, and actually had managed to take the piece of sea in which he was, the cube of sea. As I said, it was all little bricks, so we had some bricks made of forest, some bricks made of earth, some bricks, and some bricks were simply just cubes made of water with all the little fishes swimming inside and making sure that they wouldn't fall off from the cube of water, otherwise they die. The Man-o-War was there. I was a little surprised. Commanders of the Italian companies had come from all over to disassemble the cubes, to disassemble the sea, and he had just been taken by surprise. My wife was in a completely different areas of the zone where we were reconstructing the Earth. And he was there taken by surprise and thinking, uh-oh, this is not looking good. And in fact, my revenge came in the fact that, as I had told you, I had labeled all the different bricks and parts and components of the Earth so we could reconstruct it correctly. But what's happening here is that when it came to that brick, I decided to shuffle the labels, and I decided to put that area of the sea where my enemy was at the bottom of the ocean, which is a very, very deep and dark area, also with a terrible pressure. And if you ever seen illustrations, paintings of the animals that are down there, they're just so ugly. There's that guy with a sort of like lantern that hangs in front of his head, and other fishes that look all like disgusting. And the pressure was not enough to kill the Man-o-War, because that Portuguese Man-o-War, that annoying Zoid, was pretty strong. So the pressure was not enough to kill him, but he was forced to be down there at the bottom of the ocean for the rest of his life. Sort of like poetic justice, similar to what I had inflicted to the giraffe. And so he that had dared to try to take away my beautiful wife from me was at that point stuck for the rest of his life, surrounded by the most ugly fishes that nature ever produced. And I think that is a fitting end for that annoying Man-o-War that tried to insidiate my wife. So you see, we Italian condottieri can have a golden heart, but also can be very annoying when the situation requires it. I'm almost finished with my wine. Let me get a little bit more. Oh. This is just so good. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the story. There are a couple of details that I skipped here and there, like how in the meanwhile, while all this was happening, I also acted as a consultant for William Shakespeare to proofread all of his 49 tragedies. Yeah, there were many more originally, but I just told him that to reduce the number, because most of those were just like terrible. They just looked too much like Christopher Marlowe. How, for example, I had crossbred different animals to create a race of unicorns that was actually able to do very complicated mathematical operations and ride bikes in any climate. So I had just accomplished a couple of other things in the meanwhile, but I just tried to give you the general outline. I don't want to hold the conversation for too long, though. I wanna pass the mic, so to speak, to other fellows of this very refined company. We have had such great stories from other fellows, and I definitely want to hear what you have to say, my good friend Sir Eugen Evans. I know that your love for ornithology at some point led you to spend 20 years among the Tasmanian quails, actually disguised as one of them in order to study their customs. And I know that your 20-year stay among the Tasmanian quails has led to the extinction of that entire species, the construction of a full-size replica of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but made of bread, and your marriage with two bearded women. All of this the same day. I think it's remarkable. I'm also interested in ornithology, but my own little experiments never led me to spend 20 years among quails to cause the extinction of their species, to build a replica of the Tower of Pisa in bread, and to marry two bearded women. Something very similar happened to me, but the same day, like you did. That is a great story that I'm really looking forward to hearing.